Joe, I'm not going to give away what I thought of this movie, but I did appreciate one scene a lot.
Which scene is that, George?
The really hot one.
What was a really hot scene? I don't know what you're talking about.
You know, with the two...
Girls? What hot scene was there with two girls?
Not girls. I was going to say iguanas.
Iguanas?
Yeah, you know how I love that hot iguana on iguana action.
There was no iguana on iguana action.
In your mind, Joe. In your mind.
George, are you telling me you were aroused by the iguanas in this movie?
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Okay.
I wasn't aroused by iguanas in this movie. There are a lot of iguanas. No, I was aroused by the scene with the two iguanas on the table that only Nicolas Cage sees. Va va vroom! Those are some cock-worthy reptiles.
Dude, what are you even saying?
Relax, Joe. I'd wear a condom.
Welcome to Does This Still Work? The podcast looks at always and asks, does this still work? I'm Joe Dixon.
And I'm George Romacka. And today we are discussing one of the longest titled movies we have ever done on this podcast.
True.
Bad Lieutenant, Port of Call, New Orleans from 2009, and some historical context. Now that I think about it, it's still way, way shorter than Dr. Strangelove.
Oh, yes, that is true. That is also correct.
First, podcasty stuff. You can reach us at dtswpod@gmail.com, on Facebook, Letterboxd, and on our YouTube channel. Joe is on Blue Sky at joedixon.bsky.social. Please tell your friends about us, even the ones who will light your Caucasian friend's crack pipe and leave 5-star ratings everywhere. You can pick what we watch and get extra per episode content by funding us on Patreon for as little as $1 a month at patreon.com/dtswpod. And one more thing, we have a guest. Please welcome the host of Lush Vibes Radio on Radio Free Brooklyn and a guy that needs to make more time for movies, Calvin Williams.
Thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it. Real excited to be here.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
Thank you for being here. Calvin, why did you pick this film?
2 words. Nicolas Cage.
You a big Nicolas Cage fan?
I'm not going to sit here and say I'm the biggest Nicolas Cage fan, but his take on acting is something that I can really appreciate. Even the particularly not so great roles. No matter what movie he does, you're going to have feelings about it one way or another, and it's always something either engaging, cringeworthy, hilarious, or a combination of the three.
Okay.
Alrighty.
Could you tell me real quick a little bit about Lush Vibes Radio, because I'm not familiar.
So that's my radio show I do Tuesday nights from 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. Started it back in 2018. It's a 2-hour music show all about kind of the more ambient-esque side of all different genres of music, kind of like those songs that have that nice, warm, airy, vibey, wavy sound, but not like Brian Eno or anything like that. It's all different genres, hip-hop, R&B, even getting classic soul, pop, synthwave, orchestral music, and just a little bit of everything. Just kind of give you that good vibe for that time of the evening or whatever time you listen to the show. Just good vibes.
Nap time?
Even nap time.
All right. I love music for nap time.
I've had plenty of people say that my show has helped relax them to the point where they can have a very good night's sleep. So whatever people get out of my show, I do appreciate them listening.
Yeah.
That's cool.
We've heard that too. About our show. I know of at least one person that falls asleep listening to our show.
It's usually me.
Well, other than us.
Oddly, during the show. That's the worst part.
Yeah, that's when the narcolepsy just really takes over.
Really takes it. Real quick question, and then we'll get into the film here. But I have to ask, since your show is called Vibes, as you know, we all live in this. Well, you and I live in the city. My co-host lives in Jersey.
For now.
But we both live in New York City. And our governor has decided that she had vibes and thought that the National Guard should go down to our subways. Do you have any feelings about those vibes?
That's a little... I don't get good vibes about that one.
Too much? Too political?
It's a little overkill. Why don't we just use the cops that we already have here in the city?
The ones where we pay all this money to. Yeah, isn't it weird?
Exactly. That's what we used to do. We used to have transit cops. And then the transit cop program or whatever that was got swallowed up. for whatever reason. And so, I don't know. Like,
now they're just plain old cops. We paid lots of money in the city to law enforcement, and the crime rate is down. Why are we paying the National Guard to come in? Sorry, I just had to get that out.
Nah, I feel you on that. That's stupid. No, it's very unnecessarily heavy-handed for the kind of issues that we have in the subways, which, all things considered, isn't ridiculous. I mean, I think people kind of get up in arms about it because probably some people kind of get vibes of how the subway used to be back in the 80s and early 90s. But no, it's nowhere near that.
Oh, this is for tourists. Yeah, it's nothing. The crime is so wound down. Anyway.
Yeah.
George, ask your question.
Okay, Joe, take us back to 2009.
Most certainly, sir. Considering how this movie starts, we really can't go back to 2009 without first stopping off in 2005 when Hurricane Katrina hit New Orleans. So let's do a quick recap on that. Hurricane Katrina was a Category 3 on the hurricane scale. A Category 5 is the highest. The storm covered about 400 miles across and produced winds ranging from 100 to 140 miles per hour. The winds were not the worst part. The storm surge did the worst damage. You see, New Orleans has these things called levees. They're also known as flood banks. And these are walls, sometimes natural, sometimes human-made, that are meant to keep rivers from flooding a town. Well, Katrina breached those. And in case you didn't know, New Orleans is completely surrounded by water. So this was bad with a capital B. This is made even worse due to the failure of both local and federal government, who first didn't do such a hot job maintaining levees, then failed to properly evacuate and rescue citizens trapped by the cyclone or too poor to flee. That left a lot of people vulnerable, not the least of which were prisoners left to rot in their cells as the cops ran for their lives. Yes, you see, George is right. Cops are bastards.
Yep.
Anyway, that's just a quick overview. As the movie not only references that hurricane, it depicts a guy trapped in his jail cell, and his rescue leads to the back injury that leads to our main character's drug addiction. But that's my co-host's section.
Yep.
I just do the history. If you want to know more, we have a link in our show notes. Or you can Google it. With that out of the way, let's see what law enforcement was up to in 2009 in the city of New Orleans. Oh, look! They were being investigated, surprise, for their actions during Hurricane Katrina. Read this headline from the New York Times, George.
New Orleans police face swarm of inquiries.
I will quote from the article. 4 years after the department was accused of acting lawlessly and suppressing violence in the wake of Hurricane Katrina, dozens of officers, some from an elite unit, have been interviewed by the FBI or faced subpoenas to testify before federal grand juries. And on a recent Saturday, a major city bridge where police officers killed 2 men in the floodwaters of 2005 were shut by federal investigators for several hours. At least 3 federal investigations into the police are underway. End quote. Those investigations, at least some of them, yielded results. Yes, this is a rare case of cops actually being punished for the crimes they committed. For that story, we need to go to 2012. George, read this headline from The Guardian. Link, as always, in the show notes.
5 New Orleans police officers sentenced in Hurricane Katrina killings. 4 officers, along with a 5th who helped cover up the 2005 crimes, are sentenced to between 6 and 65 years in prison.
You see, folks, I am capable of ending the history corner on an upbeat note. Okay, George, tell us about Bad Lieutenant, Port of Call, New Orleans.
All right. This was directed by Werner Herzog. I could have sworn he directed Blade Runner, but I was wrong.
Now you're thinking of somebody else entirely.
Yep. And this was written by William M. Finkelstein, who we will talk about again in a moment because he's in the movie too.
Ah, okay. You know, I have to say, I am surprised. I thought I'd never seen a Werner Herzog movie. I've heard of him. He's a very famous director. I didn't even realize he had directed this, or I'd forgotten because I'd seen this originally when it came out. Are you familiar with him, Calvin?
I know the name, and I'm pretty sure that I know of some of his movies, but I can't think of any at the moment.
Yeah, you and me both.
That's where Google comes in.
Or IMDb,
Oh.
which our script, you can actually just click on the link and it'll take you there. I'm fancy like that.
Which I do appreciate. Oh yeah, he did Jack Reacher.
Blurbs. IMDb says, Terrence McDonough is a drug and gambling addicted detective in post-Katrina New Orleans investigating the killing of 5 Senegalese immigrants. Okay? Hulu. Terrence McDonough, Nicolas Cage, is a drug and gambling addicted detective in post-Katrina New Orleans investigating the killing of 5 Senegalese immigrants with Eva Mendes and Val Kilmer. So the Hulu blurb is the IMDb blurb plus actors.
Plus, it implies that Eva Menendez and Val Kilmer is helping them do the investigation.
Yeah, that doesn't happen.
Nope. At least not Eva Mendes.
Yes, she's no help at all. Neither the characters nor the actors help him in the investigation.
Nobody helps anything in this movie. The film starts with us watching a snake slithering its way through the rising waters following Hurricane Katrina, which absolutely tore a new asshole into the city of New Orleans area Gulf Coast. That hurricane also led to the last correct thing Kanye West ever said when he said George Bush doesn't care about black people. The last we see of the snake is it having the same fearful reaction as the human it just discovered. It has come up against the cell of Evaristo Chavez, who is in jail and is played by Nick Gomez,
Who I've seen in Looper.
Upstairs in the abandoned police station are 2 cops tasked with going through the locker of a third who has since left the force. In the locker, they find naked Polaroids of that cop's wife, along with paperwork suggesting that a prisoner might not have been transferred out of the jail downstairs in the pre-Katrina evacuations. The first cop is Terrence McDonough, and he is played by Nicolas Cage.
My man.
Who we've seen for the podcast in Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Yes, he has just a small role in it. And I've seen him on my own in The Flash, Pig, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Well, that was his voice anyway. Teen Titans Go to the Movies, also his voice. Grindhouse, Adaption, Face Off, Leaving Las Vegas, Kiss of Death, It Could Happen to You, Aim St. Andrew, Raising Arizona, and The Cotton Club.
And I've seen him in The Rock, Con Air, Gone in 67's, The Family Man, and National Treasure. And Calvin has probably seen more.
Yeah, what have you seen him in, Calvin?
That's not listed there.
My other favorite outside of Protocol New Orleans, The Wicker Man.
Ah.
No, that one. What's that about?
Like many other movies that I've seen more than 5 years ago, I don't remember much about it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a frequent issue on this podcast.
And also, this movie, it's been at least 10 years since I last saw Protocol New Orleans. I can tell you for certain that like it felt like a completely new experience watching this movie again, because as much as I did remember of the movie, there was even more that I didn't. So I feel like I enjoyed the experience even more this time around because it felt new to me. So it felt good to watch this.
That's frightening. It's frightening that you enjoyed this.
Yeah.
Well, it made him feel good. That's really weird. So like you with the iguanas.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
God. When they molt. Oh. Stevie Pruitt is played by Val Kilmer. And for the show, we've seen him in Top Gun and Real Genius.
And I've seen him in Jay and Silent Bob, Reboot, Heat, True Romance, and Thunderheart.
And we've both seen him in Tombstone from 1993 and Top Gun Maverick. And I've seen him in Willow, Batman Forever, and heard his voice in The Prince of Egypt. For some reason, that white guy was Moses.
And we both saw him in Top Gun. I mean, you said it already, but we both literally saw him because we went to the movie theater to see that.
Yeah, together.
Top Gun Maverick.
Oh,
Yeah.
Ah, nice.
Oh, you know what? You talk about forgetting stuff. I forgot Val Kilmer was in this movie. I completely. God.
You can be watching this movie and forget he's in this movie.
He doesn't play a big part in it, but he's important.
Yep, he does play a semi-important role.
Yes.
Yeah. So the 2 cops head down to the jail and taunt the prisoner for a bit. Eventually, Terrence, despite wearing $55 underwear, decides to rescue the prisoner. He jumps into the water.
It's not just any $55 underwear, it was Swedish cotton. Better get that right, man.
Yep, Swedish cotton.
Who would be really dumb enough to wear? Who needs expensive underwear? Just as long as it doesn't tear apart when you wash it. Who gives a fuck?
Hanes, Fruit of the Loom, whatever, jockey, you wear one pair, you've worn them all. Unless your backside is that sensitive.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to disagree on all that. It's worth it to have underwear that makes you look good in them. Because in that moment that your radio show provides music for, the one that's not nap time, when you get your pants off, you are still clothed and you still want to look good.
You can't look good in Hanes?
You can look better in other stuff.
I don't know.
We jump to sometime in the future as Terrence is in a doctor's office looking at x-rays of his jacked up spine. Apparently, he injured himself jumping into the water and will now require opioid painkillers for the rest of his life. For his valor in rescuing the prisoner, Terrence is promoted to lieutenant because he can't be a bad lieutenant if he's not a lieutenant.
That's the way it works.
Continuity.
Yep. A year later, Terrence arrives at the scene of a quintuple homicide in a poor neighborhood in New Orleans. Before he gets out of the car, he has to do a bump of cocaine because this is a bad lieutenant movie. We watch as he is briefed by the police already on the scene, And as he looks at the bodies, which prior to this execution-style homicide comprised an entire family of undocumented Senegalese immigrants.
I'm going to do a little compare and contrast to the last movie we saw that was A Bad Lieutenant. Obviously, there are cops who use drugs. There's no question about that. But do they really go to the scene of crime first and then do the drugs? You think they do it somewhere else and then...
In the car.
I mean, but you can see, there's glass in the car, you can see inside.
Like, we are looking from the passenger seat at him while he is doing this. There is an entire windshield in front of him that everybody else can be looking into to see him doing that.
Exactly, yeah.
Like, the camera does a good job of making it feel like it's a private, intimate space, but it's not.
No.
To that point, though, it is 2005 New Orleans, and he just rolled up into a crime scene, and there's activity akimbo all around him. Do you honestly think that people will, like, really give a shit about some rando that shows up in a car and does a hit of cocaine before doing anything else?
I would hope. I mean, they are cops.
But they're New Orleans cops in 2005, and a cop car rolled up.
That's true.
I mean, to be fair, they are bastards.
Yes.
You would think at least he'd be paranoid. Apparently, they are so lax. He's not so bad that he can do it in the office, although there are discussions in the office I also find kind of weird. I guess we'll get to.
Yeah. Speaking of the office, back at police headquarters, Captain Brasser briefs the force on the murders and directs them to bring in every drug-dealing person that they know of, or something to that effect. Brasser calls Terrence into his office for a moment to make sure that he's okay with going out in the field, what with his back being messed up and all. Terrence says he's fine, and Brasser needs Terrence's instinct anyway, so off to the races. And Captain James Brasser is played by DTSW alum Vondi Curtis Hall.
We have seen more movies of this man than we have of Nicolas Cage.
For the podcast, yeah.
We're big Vondi Curtis Hall fans.
Yep.
We've seen him in Eve's Bayou. Mm-hmm. We've seen him in Gridlocked. Mm-hmm. We've seen him in Falling Down. And we've seen him in Coming to America.
And in Falling Down, he was the not economically viable man.
That's correct.
I just remember that now. That is a thing I know.
And I've seen him in Blue Bayou, Harriet, Clear and Present Danger, Crooklyn, Passion Fish, Mystery Train, and I watched him in the TV show Chicago Hope.
That was the one with Mandy Patinkin, right?
That is correct.
Okay, just checking. We've both seen him in Broken Arrow, and I've seen him in Die Hard 2 and Romeo plus Juliet, the one that had Leonardo DiCaprio in it.
Yes.
And I have actually seen him fairly recently in the Netflix show The Recruit.
Okay. So the man works a lot, was what you're saying.
He's keeping busy. Got to keep them bills paid.
Yes. Good for him. Nicolas Cage performs here, and Harvey Keitel's a good actor, but I like Nicolas. I really believe Nicolas Cage is high as fuck in this movie and fucked up. His back really hurts him. I'm really convinced of that. He convinced me. Keitel, good actor as he is, never convinced him is really fucked up.
Terrence has a couple of stops to make before he can investigate things proper. He stops off at the Devereaux Apartments where his prostitute girlfriend Frankie lives. He brings her some cocaine and they smooch for a bit. Frankie Donenfield is played by Eva Mendes,
who I've seen in The Other Guys.
I bet you have. I've seen in Too Fast, Too Furious and Once Upon a Time in Mexico.
Wasn't she also in Hitch?
Probably.
We didn't see Hitch.
Yep. We only named things we saw.
Okay.
His other stop is at the pharmacy to pick up his Vicodin. The pharmacy technician is on the phone too long for his liking, so he goes back behind the counter and finds the medications himself. Again, bad lieutenant.
Although, to be fair, he does leave more money than he has to, so he's a complete dick about it, but...
No, at least he's reasonable about it.
You don't go back there and help yourself to the meds.
But he's in pain.
But have we all wanted to do that?
I mean, yes. I've had a few moments with my pharmacist.
If I'm in pain was an excuse for a lot of bad behavior, then I'd still be married to my ex.
Oh, ew.
Buzzing.
That she has chronic pain.
And you were it.
That's not true. Terrence returns to the station in a hurry because Stevie is playing bad cop in an interrogation. Terrence kicks him out of the interrogation room so he can play good cop, but they never actually agree on doing that dynamic.
No.
They're just doing good cop, bad cop unironically.
That's the part I love about that scene.
It's true. That's exactly what happens. Yeah.
The sweeter approach nets at least a little bit of intel about who this low-level dealer may have been involved with. Terrence goes to take a nap in a storage room, but is awakened by Munt, the cop working in the evidence room. These two have had an arrangement, which is how Terrence has been getting his cocaine. But Internal Affairs is snooping around and putting up cameras, so it looks like Terrence is about to get cut off.
Munt is played by Michael Shannon, who we've seen for the pod in Before the Devil Knows You're Dead, and we've both seen in Knives Out. And I've seen in The Flash, Amsterdam, and Bullet Train.
And I've seen in Groundhog Day, Pearl Harbor, 8 Mile, and Man of Steel. Terrence goes out in the streets that night to score himself some drugs. This is this movie's equivalent of the scene with Harvey Keitel jerking off outside of a car with 2 underage teenage ladies in it.
Mm-hmm.
At least it seems that all the people in this one, character-wise, are adults. He catches a couple coming out of a club. When they get to the parking lot, he says they fit the description and orders them to empty their pockets. He ends up smoking crack with the young lady who, from what I can tell, gives him a thigh job as Terrence uses his gun to basically cuck the girl's boyfriend.
So this here is a scene that got my attention about Port of Call, New Orleans. I think I came across this. Somebody had posted it on Facebook, and I saw 1, how ridiculous that scene was. 2, Nicolas Cage. And I think that's what caught my interest in this movie. It seemed absolutely goddamn ridiculous. And in the scene in itself, Nicolas Cage being on crack.
At least he's harassing white people.
Right.
I appreciate that.
Adults, too.
Yes.
Adults.
Yes.
Adult white people, yeah.
The mechanics of that sexual encounter are baffling me.
Yes, same here.
As best I can tell, he is either hung like a tube sock full of billiard balls and curved upwards, or he was getting a thigh job. Because her legs were closed.
No, I got that part. I'm not disagreeing there.
Okay.
I'm not disagreeing at all.
Just making sure I'm not crazy.
You're not crazy. Do you think, was that encounter, I guess you can't say it was consensual, but was it sexual assault? Because she seems to be...
It is definitionally sexual assault because this is a power imbalance problem. He is a cop harassing people, and she did that. But, Joe, you never asked a girl mid-coitus if her parents molested her?
No, I can't say I've ever have.
Okay.
I can't say I've done that either.
Because you know that character-wise, he wanted the answer to be yes.
Yeah.
Ah, I hadn't even thought of that.
Which puts a layer of fucko on this.
I mean, to be fair, from the jump, you can kind of see that he's unhinged in the first place.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you can tell that from the title, Bad Lieutenant.
Yeah, the title does tip you off where this is going.
Just for kicks, I decided to watch the original Bad Lieutenant. Whew.
Oh, I'm sorry.
George, you and I talked about Harvey and his Keitel in the movie. Yeah.
Yep. We sure did.
It was, first and foremost, quite an experience watching that movie. Whew. 1992 cinema. That is gritty as shit, man.
That was 1992, but belonged in the 60s.
No, I think 70s.
Okay.
70s, yeah. But it was also 1992 New York. So there was a lot of grit to it before Giuliani came along. So there was also that.
Yeah. Old melty head.
I just want to point out that is not if you watch a Harvey Keitel movie, you are at least 60% chance you're going to see his penis. That man loves to have his dong out a lot.
I was not aware of it.
Or his Keitel, as we say.
Or his Keitel. It's either you can either see the outlines of his penis as underwear, or it's just full on out. But either way, he's very proud of it apparently because he shows it a lot.
I mean, it's a respectable penis. It's nothing wrong with it. No weird growth. It's fine.
Right.
It's not a thumbs down for you.
Yeah. The next day, Terrence goes to visit Frankie, who has a client at the moment, but that just means Terrence gets to steal drugs from somebody else. So he does that. Frankie has no problems with this.
He steals a lot of drugs.
He does.
He's cheap. Go buy your own drugs, man.
Yep.
Hey, a corrupt cop in New Orleans, you can do whatever the hell you want. It really sounded like New Orleans back in 0506 was...
What, do you think this is Vegas?
Was just absolutely fucking lawless.
Terrence attends the funeral for the slain Senegalese family and hears a plea from a relative to find the murderers. He gets a lead from her that there was a delivery from a local grocery store made to the home the day of those murders. He tracks that young delivery boy down and finds him hiding out with his grandmother, Binny, who is the caretaker for an elderly white lady. Turns out he was hiding in the closet when the murders happened, so he can give them a direction to go in. Binny Rogers is played by Irma P. Hall,
who I've seen in Chirac.
And I've seen in Backdraft.
And I've seen her in the movie Soul Food.
Nice.
She was Big Mama.
And Daryl is played by Denzel Whitaker, who Joe and I have both seen, and presumably Calvin has seen Black Panther.
Yes.
Terrence goes back to the police station and lays out their next 3 arrests. The ringleader is a guy called Big Fate, and anyone dealing any drugs in the area is beholden to him. They're going to get to him through his 2 closest associates, G and Midget. And every time he says G, he gets this weird fucking look on his face.
I never spotted that.
He has a lot of weird looks. You're talking about the bad lieutenant, right?
Yeah.
All his looks are weird, man.
And his accent changes like halfway through the movie.
It's Nicolas Cage. All his accents change throughout the movie.
Yeah.
The man can't stay on one tone. He's all over the place. That's what makes him so much fun to watch.
G gets arrested without much fanfare, and Terrence is proud of himself for managing to sneak in through the back door and catch him unawares. At the police station, G is not talkative during the interrogation. And G is played by Tim Bello.
It was just kind of like your standard issue scene, but like I just love the fact that Terrence kind of continues the whole like scummy cop thing by stealing the drugs in the kitchen as he goes into the other apartment.
Yep.
Yeah.
Then we go to a casino bar where Terrence meets Ned, his bookie. Just like the first Bad Lieutenant movie, this protagonist also has a gambling problem and will keep losing throughout most of the movie. Ned asks Terrence to take care of a speeding ticket for his daughter, so that we can get another character to introduce for no fucking reason. Ned Schoenholtz is played by Brad Dourif,
who for the show we've seen in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and George's favorite film of all time, Blue Velvet.
Is this a movie that I should watch?
Yes, I think you should watch it, and then you'll know why I hate it.
This is a great movie. He just can't appreciate pure cinema. That's his problem.
I'm having flashback. Keep reading, Joe, while I have this flashback.
I've also seen him in Jungle Fever and The Guyana Tragedy, The Story of Jim Jones, the TV movie.
And I've seen him in The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King. He was Grima Wormtongue.
Oh, Wormtongue?
Wormtongue. Like that's not a bad guy just born into it with that last name.
Was his tongue really like a worm's?
No, but he had a kind of speechy type of magic that befuddled a king for years. Ned drives out to the scene of a traffic accident so we can see that there are some cops who do care about the law. That's not the cop we're here to meet, though. Heidi, Terrence's ex-girlfriend, decides to take him home with her. He asks her to take care of that traffic ticket and also get him some drugs from her station's evidence room. This turns her off. Or does it? Pin in that. Heidi is played by TTSW alum Fairuza Balk, who we've seen for the show in The Craft, American History X, and Almost Famous, and I've seen in The Waterboy.
I loved her in The Waterboy.
My title for this scene is I Want to Catch a Midget.
I love it.
You're very proud of this.
I am. The voice to text kept putting asterisks anytime I said midget. It was annoying as fuck. Asterisk? Because midget is not the accepted term for little people.
Oh.
Yeah, so it kept pretending it was profanity, but it's a character's fucking name. Anyway. The police force set up to arrest Midget across the street from where he stays with his baby mama. Terrence finds him hiding in an armoire and gets the room to themselves. He lights up a blunt with the guy who denies knowing anything about anyone named Big Fate. Midget is played by Lucius Bastian, and yes, in this scene, in the house that they're set up from, he sees 2 hallucinogens of iguanas on a table. Nobody else sees them, and then the movie spends like an entire fucking song looking from the iguana's point of view at all the cops.
So,
yeah, that's such a... Let's get into that a little bit. That's such a weird scene, right?
Do we have to?
He is standing there, looks at these and hey, well, these iguanas here. They're like, there's no iguanas. Yeah, right here. Then what should have gone to the other cops? Okay, man, you need a break or something because this is like, you see shit that's not there. But they go like, no, okay, fine. And then they just still stand there waiting. I don't know for what. And he keeps side glancing at these iguanas that aren't there. And yeah, right, this long song.
He's just absolutely...
Why are we watching this?
Just so entranced by these iguanas. Thank you. I mean, it was certainly a cinematic decision on Werner Herzog's part. It was one of at least 2 scenes that had reptile perspective, because the previous scene. The previous scene.
Yeah, the previous scene had an alligator.
Had a scene of a perspective of an alligator walking across the street.
And then we'll have another one with the iguanas as well. Another scene's going to have with iguanas.
Yeah, they'll show up in a different hallucination.
What is Werner Herzog telling us with this? I don't get it.
That's what I was trying to figure out myself.
You're right. It was obviously a choice.
Yeah.
What's that?
He liked the song and he wanted an excuse to play it.
Decisions were made.
Yes.
They sure were.
Terrence drives out to where his ex-cop dad, Pat, lives with his stepmom, Genevieve, or Stifler's mom. Both have a drinking problem, but Genevieve's is less of a problem because she just sticks to beer. Pat is upset because Genevieve can't take care of his dog. Terrence has a solution for this, and it is not to shoot the dog between the eyes. I could see that being the solution given this movie.
He's not that sort of guy. Genevieve is played by Jennifer Coolidge, and we've seen in the podcast as Stifler's mom in American Pie. And I've seen in The White Lotus, easily the most annoying character in that series, but anyway, the TV miniseries. And also I saw in Promising Young Woman, A Mighty Wind, and Pootie Tang.
Oh, that's right. She was in Pootie Tang. I forgot.
She was in Pootie Tang.
She sure was.
Oh, you should forget Pootie Tang. That was a god-awful fucking movie.
I love that movie. I don't care what y'all say.
You love Pootie Tang?
I love Pootie Tang. Sadate.
Oh my god. That is so... the moment the woman starts drinking out of the bowl for the dog, I'm like, all right, I'm out.
Now you're beginning to understand the level of ridiculousness in movies that I love.
Yep. I've seen her in Legally Blonde, and Joe and I have both seen her in Austin Powers, The Spy Who Shagged Me.
Do you know that The Spy Who Shagged Me was actually very controversial because shagged means a whole other word outside of America, and they thought it was too dirty and they had to change it outside the United States. Like in Britain, Ireland, always they said, shagged? You can't say that in a film.
Yeah, it means fucked, right? It means had sex with.
But apparently it's even worse than just fucking.
Okay.
The way it was described to me is that I don't know why, but they just take it as even worse than saying fuck.
Okay, then.
Aren't these countries that say cunt regularly on their TV shows?
Yes. Yes.
So
that word is okay.
So I'm actually pretty stunned that the word shag has that kind of connotation.
Evidently.
Pat McDonough is played by Tom Bower. We've seen him for the show in a test episode for Beverly Hills Cop 2.
And I've seen in El Camino, a Breaking Bad movie, and also Clear and Present Danger.
And I've seen him in Die Hard 2. Terrence brings the dog and some drugs, of course, to Frankie. She's not thrilled at the prospect, but also not totally against babysitting it. Midget's interrogation is interrupted by the arrival of Big Fate himself and his lawyer. Terrence and Brasser get called into the district attorney Jeremiah Goodhusband's office to be told that if they lose Daryl, they lose the case. Big Fate is played by Exhibit, and I've seen him in 8 Mile.
When I first saw that name, Exhibit, I did not know how to pronounce that. I'm like, XZIBIT? What the hell is that?
But once you see the pronunciation, it kind of makes sense.
Yes.
The 2 things that I fondly recall Exhibit in are Gridiron Gang and the TV show Pimp My Ride.
Yep.
Okay.
That's where most people
Is he also a singer or something, a rapper?
He's a rapper.
Also a rapper.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do you ever play his music on your show?
As of right now, no. Though I'll have to look through his catalog, see if there's anything I can feasibly play.
Lush vibe worthy?
Yes.
Terrence is now saddled with babysitting Daryl. He goes to pawn him off on Frankie, but she's not home. She's at the other place that she would be when she does the things that she does for a living. There, her current customer, Justin, has just finished putting bruises on her face. She tells Terrence that the guy hasn't paid her, so Terrence extracts money from him and threatens him.
I'm gonna wish you were born without a dick. Whoa, Terry. Whoa. Big mistake.
That was this movie's Pretty Woman moment. Justin is played by Shea Wiggum, no relation to the police chief in The Simpsons Springfield.
And I've seen him in Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, And I heard him in Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, and I've seen him in The Wolf of Wall Street and American Hustle.
I've seen him in The Fast and Furious, and we've both seen him in Silver Linings Playbook. So how about this fucker, huh?
Yeah, Justin, that guy was weird as hell. Like unnecessarily weird. like unnecessarily weird, but just the right amount of weird for this movie.
Yeah.
He was weird and like really squirrely and shifty, and that whole woo 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 thing that kind of bugged me out. Not gonna lie.
Yeah. As an audio editor, that infuriated me. So I made it a sound clip for some reason.
Before we continue, I randomly think about this particular scene, and in particular Eva Mendes, and like how convincing she was looking as strung out as she was at that point in the movie. Like you can see she's like kind of chill throughout the movie, but like when she opens the door, she's got the glasses on. Terrence takes the glasses off, and you can see just the absolute like dead, glass-eyed expression on her face.
Yep.
And like how much she was fiending at that point.
How she didn't care about what was being done to her body. She just wanted some drugs. Yes,
exactly.
Yeah.
I picked up on that, and I was pretty impressed with her acting on that one.
You think that's what happens when you work with Mr. Herzog? He has that effect on people?
That or Nicolas Cage.
Fair.
Terrence takes both Daryl and Frankie to the casino with the bar that he always meets his bookie in to talk to that bookie. He makes another losing bet, and by the time he gets back to Frankie, Daryl has run away. So Terrence and Frankie drive around all night looking for him. Can you tell where I got tired of writing this summary?
Well, let me fill it out a bit. Yeah, he goes on the run, and for some reason, this really should have cost Terrence's job.
Legit. Like
he loses a witness, for fuck's sake.
Not just any witness, that was their ringer.
The key witness. Yeah.
Yes.
The only witness. Terrence heads back to Biddy, Daryl's grandmother, and cuts off the old white lady's O2 supply until Biddy tells him that Daryl is on a plane to Europe.
Thanks to the old white lady, actually.
Yep.
Who knew old white folks could be so useful?
Yeah.
They vote so terribly.
Well, he does tell her at some point in this movie that in this scene, that she is what is wrong with America. So, which she didn't seem to give a fuck about at all until this scene.
Nah.
Sucking up all her children's inheritance money through that fucked oxygen tube, I believe were his words.
Yes.
In that scene.
That is very eloquently quoted there, Calvin.
Thank you.
I'm a little worried and afraid of you now.
I don't know if that scene, I mean, obviously I completely can believe that character would do something fucked up like that, the Terrence character, Nicolas Cage's character. But I find hard to believe these women wouldn't be screaming, or at least Biddy would be screaming her head off. But because he like puts a gun on them, he takes the oxygen outside. That'd be like, a woman would be like screaming her head off. Help, help, ah! I mean, I've never pulled a gun on someone, so maybe I'm wrong. But
I can see an old black lady having survived to old black ladyhood by knowing when to not get all, quote, uppity around white cops.
Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, possibly.
That's my internal rationalization for her not screaming her head off in that scene.
Yeah, I can see that. Couple of things that I noted in that particular scene. I think Nicolas Cage's best acting in the entire movie, I believe, came from that scene.
When he's hiding behind the door and they get into the room and he opens the door and he's shaving, that moment, yes, I would agree. That very specific moment where he's not talking, he's just shaving his face, is his best acting in the movie.
Like, that was just like a full-on Batman-ass moment right there. If that were a Batman movie, like, whoever he was chasing would have shit their pants at that point.
Yep.
I just like how he delivered his line about the old lady and what's wrong with America in that particular scene. I thought it was good acting on his part, which is something I can say about various portions of the movie, but that one part, he did his thing there.
I love this performance throughout this entire film.
He did really good in selling that he was in pain all the time, like walking with
a limp and hunchbacked and one shoulder up. Yeah,
he reminded me kind of the Bug, Vincent D'Onofrio's character in is it Men in Black 2?
Okay. Yeah.
I kind of look at both of those performances and realize, oh wait, both of them are method actors, so that kind of tracks.
Definitely some meth involved in that, yeah. Terrence gets it from the DA for having lost Daryl, and then from Brasser Internal Affairs for how he treated the old white lady. Things are spiraling out of control for him. As if to underscore that fact, he returns to Frankie's, where Justin's dad, Dave, and 2 henchmen are now holding a gun to the dog and threatening Frankie. Dave says Terrence's treatment of Justin will cost him $50,000 and some free use of Frankie's body by the henchmen. Dave Jacobs is played by William M. Finkelstein, and he wrote this fucking movie.
Interesting how he decided to the way he decided to insert himself into the movie.
Yes.
I loved how innocent the dog looked when the henchman pointed the gun at the dog and was like, "You want me to shoot this fucking dog?" And the dog is like, "Who, me? I'm a good boy."
Yawn. Yep.
This dog does not protect fucking anybody in a picture.
Nope.
That's at one point having a dog. Shoot these humans. I don't care. Shoot me. I don't even care about that.
Hey, there's company. I'll entertain them. That's basically the dog's MO in that entire scene.
I can do lie down. Real good. See? Terrence decides to stash Frankie and the dog at his dad's place. Frankie and Genevieve immediately don't get along, and then Internal Affairs shows up and takes his gun. He takes Frankie out to the backyard and shows her the shed that he hid and played in as a child. He tells her about a spoon that he found with a metal detector that he lost in there somewhere. This is Chekhov's goddamn spoon.
I didn't understand that scene at all.
This scene existed to show that he's a human being. To humanize him a little bit, to remind us he was a child once. Meeting his dad was not enough for us to know that he was a child once. We needed to hear childhood stories about him. Because for all we fucking know, this guy jumped out of Werner Herzog and Finkelstein's heads as is.
I don't know. I mean, the fact that he saves that guy at the beginning and doesn't let him drown, which his partner wanted him to do, sort of already gives us a little bit of his humanity. So we know at least there's some human in there. I don't think we need it. Let's see with the spoon.
Yeah. It's been a long time since that scene.
I initially thought that scene was to set up a possible way for Terrence to potentially make some cash in the event that he finds the spoon, because he was talking up how valuable the spoon is. I think it was sterling silver or something. I'm not sure if he was thinking about making some money off.
Spoon isn't worth much. Silver isn't worth much.
I don't know much about jewelry or precious metals or anything like that. It could be a setup.
But even if it was worth something, when he finds the spoon and it doesn't.
Hey, don't get ahead of ourselves here.
Foreshadowing.
Brasser can't have Terrence running around doing cop stuff while he's under investigation, so he assigns him to the exact place that Terrence would love to be assigned to, the evidence room. From here, he knows how he can score drugs. Now he just needs to turn them into money. Terrence knows just the guy for that, too. Big Fate. He tracks him down, dining with his henchmen, and makes him an offer he can't refuse. Big Fate is 100% on board with having an inside line to the police and a steady supply of pre-processed drugs.
It's weird that as successful as he is, he doesn't already have cops on the payroll.
Right?
I was also kind of surprised about that.
Especially in New Orleans, for God's sake.
Yes, exactly.
And now, 3/4 of the way through the movie, we get our last fucking character to introduce. Terrence catches a football player, Ronaldo Hayes, buying drugs. He says that this will all disappear if Ronaldo throws the upcoming game.
That he can bet on.
Yeah. Ronaldo Hayes is played by Noel Arthur. Whew. So, Terrence scores some drugs from the evidence room for Big Fate and celebrates with him, G, and Midget by pointing guns at each other and being crazy.
That scene with all of them in the car and pointing the guns at everybody.
Uh-huh.
Another ridiculous favorite point in the movie of mine. Kind of showing how unhinged Terrence is at that point. I'm gonna shoot every single one of you motherfuckers.
Oh, you're gonna be delighted because that's gonna be the end clip of the movie.
To the break it down. To the break it down, baby. Just absolutely unhinged, and I love it.
Then Terrence goes to Ned and makes a $10,000 bet on a 6-point spread based on having the upper hand on Ronaldo. So Frankie decides to go into rehab, so Terrence goes to her apartment to gather some clothing. On his way out, he's followed by Dave and his henchmen. He goes to Terrence and Big Fate's place, and they celebrate their success. They share a crack pipe. That will come back later.
You don't have a lucky crack pipe?
Yep. Light the Caucasian's crack pipe. Dave followed them there, and before long, him and his henchmen are dead on the floor. So much for that storyline.
Yes, Terrence pretty much set him up. I think he knew these guys were following him, wanted them to come there, and then does all this weird shit with them. And because the dummy tries to steal from Big Fate. Of course, Big Fate's going to shoot him.
Right, exactly.
You're not going to have him just... You're in my space here, man. I'm not going to let you just rip me off. You're going to have guns all over the place. I'm a big-time drug dealer.
I think you're giving way too much credit to Terrence to have planned it.
Oh, really? Okay,
yeah.
well, when we get to him, we'll discuss. But I think this is all planned by him.
And this is what the last time that we see the iguanas, too. Because we see the iguanas scurrying around the floor because he tells Big Fate, hey, shoot Dave again because his soul's still dancing. And we see a obvious stunt double breakdancer dancing in Dave's clothes next to Dave's body. And Terrence thinks this is all fucking hilarious.
I would, too.
Yeah, so would I, honestly. But then again, like, Terrence thought everything was hilarious in that scene.
Yep.
From the lucky crack pipe to the football, the interesting football story that he told. I'll let you guys watch them. Those of you listening, you need to watch the movie for that part. The other thing, like the breakdancer, like what? I'm wondering if that was a cinematic decision, not even giving the stunt double a wig to look like part of the way,
even
like
little bit like Dave.
Yeah, you're so visibly not him.
Right.
Maybe that was a choice. I don't know.
No, they ran out of money. They blew it all on animal handlers. On his way back to his dad's place, he stops off at the site of the inciting crime, and then at the police station to let his cop buddy, who I don't even want to name, know that, hey, maybe Big Fate left a crack pipe there with his DNA on it.
That we somehow missed the first time we looked.
Yeah.
And not his partner, whatever that guy is, he goes like, oh, really? Well, how did that get there? I mean, basically asked him how that got there. And we're like, I don't know, but you may just find it there. I'm like, all right, fine.
Another vision, huh, Terrence? Deoxyribonucleic acid.
Yep. He gets home and he finds Frankie has already left for rehab. He bonds a little bit with his stepmom and then puts on the game that he tried to rig. He sees Ronaldo is sitting the game out and despairs.
Yes, because Ronaldo was supposed to throw the game, and instead he says, well, who doesn't want to do it at all, obviously. And he just like, I'll just take my chances. And, well, we don't know that's what he says, but we see that he sits on the sidelines as opposed to just throwing the game like he was asked to, or blackmailed to.
Right.
Yep. The movie realizes that it's 90% over, so it wraps up a bunch of things all at once in favor of Terrence. Ronaldo sitting out the game made it play out in his favor and he won the bet. Ned is thrilled with this and also that he came through, and by him I mean Heidi, and fixed his daughter's speeding ticket. Why the fuck did Heidi do that? Somebody tell me why, when he asked her, like, hey, get me drugs from your evidence room, she looked at him like, oh, you're that fucking guy, I don't want to deal with you anymore. But still fixed this fucking traffic ticket. Somebody explain that to me.
Because she likes that Nicolas Cage cock. Come on, man.
Obviously.
You see that thing is hung when that woman was jerking him off on the car. She says, I love this. I'm not going to steal drugs for you, but I'll fix this ticket because I love that Nicky Cage cock.
Okay, then.
She must have had some flashbacks from better days with him.
The better days, yeah.
And that Nicky Cage cock.
Yeah. Justin comes in and says, hey, there's no beef between them anymore, and he hasn't heard from his dad, and he's worried, so, peace. And then the police department is ready to move in on Big Fate based on his cop buddy finding the crap pipe with Big Fate's DNA on it. He even finds that spoon that he lost and gives it to Frankie, who thinks it's a beautiful gesture, but it's not made of silver like he said it was.
It also doesn't play any part in the plot. Why did we see that scene?
Maybe I saw it wrong, but the crack pipe that they found wasn't that Terrence's lucky crack pipe? And with that said,
yeah, but it had Big Fate. Well, it should also have his DNA on it.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Unless they looked specifically for Big Fate's DNA and not Terrence's, or
unless Terrence wiped it off before he handed it to him, wiped his off before he handed it to Big Fate.
The big questions.
So the police department moves in on Big Fate. Stevie, remember Stevie? Haven't fucking heard shit about him in a while, but remember Stevie? He tries to get Terrence on board with setting Big Fate up to be murdered. Terrence isn't okay with it and prevents it from happening. A year later, Terrence is promoted to captain for solving the murders of the Senegalese family. He is now married to Frankie, who is very pregnant. He drops her off at some point and then goes on to work the night shift. So the movie should end here because he's not a bad lieutenant anymore.
Yeah, like, looks like.
Yeah, he is a bad captain. He does a repeated thing where he follows people at a club, except that there's no sex this time. He goes to enjoy his spoils in a hotel room when room service enters, even though he didn't order any. The server is none other than Evaristo, the guy he saved at the very beginning of the movie, who had his own drug problem and promises to help. So they go to an aquarium together and sit next to one of the tanks so that Terrence can lament having ruined his underwear at the beginning of the movie. The end.
The ever-loving end. Okay, so you guys explain to me, and then we'll get into whether this works or not, because what I took this as is that at some point in this film, Terrence, Nicolas Cage, decided he was going to do his job, and he had planned all of this after everything was falling apart. He obviously set up Big Fate, even though we know Big Fate was actually guilty, but he didn't have this crack pipe. He obviously had to make sure he got his prints. He set up the guys coming there to get shot by Big Fate because he wanted to get him off his back. And the only thing he didn't really plan was the football thing. That just fell in his lap. He didn't expect that to happen. He thought he was going to blackmail the guy. The guy refused to go along with the blackmail, but the team ends up winning anyway, so it doesn't matter. Which he even says, I didn't even have to do it, or whatever line he has.
Worked out anyway.
Yeah, worked out anyway, yeah. Exactly. So I think he planned all that. What about you? You don't think that's
I don't think he planned it, but I could see how you can, and I don't care enough to arbitrate it.
The only thing that I can maybe say that he planned was setting up Big Fate. That's about it. I can maybe think the only things that he started planning was where he actually did any sort of planning was after Dave and his henchman tried to shake him and Frankie down.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. Yeah, those two were planned. The only plan that didn't work out was since you were blackmailing the football player, but works out for him anyway. Right. So you didn't even have to do the blackmail. That scene, it almost read like a comedy where all these things suddenly all came together for him at the end.
Well, this is a comedy. It is a dark comedy.
It feels that way. But anyway, so George, you have strong feelings, so we'll start with you. Does it still work?
Yeah. I hated it. I hated watching this. I certainly fucking hated summarizing it. Holy shit that I hate summarizing this. But it works a lot better than the last movie, because none of this is supposed to make you think that he's okay, that he's doing the right thing at any point. Like, you know that he's a bad person, and we're following a bad person through this movie. And as long as we know that, even if it works out for him, then the movie can still work.
Calvin?
I kind of feel like this is a movie that doesn't take itself seriously, but with that said, like, it's crazy enough to still work.
Okay. Yeah.
Just the very fact that Nicolas Cage is in it. It kind of throws.
I am not going to give a blanket pass to Nicolas Cage that anything with him in it is definitely going to work.
No, I'm making the case that is quite the opposite. I think the only Nicolas Cage movie that I feel actually worked, actually 1.5. The one that worked, National Treasure. The other movie, close but not quite, Face Off.
Okay.
But you don't think this film worked?
Yes, but just barely.
Okay. I guess I agree that it worked because you guys are both saying that, so I also agree that it works. I disagree with you though how good it is. I thought it was fantastic. It's a little long. I wish it had been cut shorter. And again, the whole thing with a spoon, I understand what the hell that was about. But I love this. I thought it was it's bonkers.
Yes, and that is why I love this movie so much.
Incredibly out of its fucking mind. And again, his performance, I enjoy way more than Harvey Keitel's. I really believe he was a drug-addicted lunatic in this movie. So
this one definitely works better than the first Bad Lieutenant, because the first Bad Lieutenant, again, traumatized me. This one didn't traumatize me, it just made me annoyed. That might be because I'm on medication now, though.
Fair. I can definitely understand why the first Bad Lieutenant traumatized you. It's supposed to be dark and gritty, and it completed its task admirably. Harvey Keitel's Lieutenant was just
the worst.
Yes, from start to finish.
Yep.
And I think about the performances between Harvey Keitel and Nicolas Cage. I personally feel like Harvey Keitel felt more believable because in his role as a drug-addled policeman, because
Yeah, because
was
Harvey Keitel is not a walking cartoon character.
also true. But like adding to the real grit of that movie, seeing him like actually like fall deep into his addictions and like actually watching him shoot up heroin and like pass out from it.
Yeah.
Both performances work in different ways, in my opinion.
Okay.
I'll tell you one thing. What I appreciate about this film, not only is it bonkers, but I appreciate that the bad lieutenant actually catches the killers, as opposed to in the first bad lieutenant, he puts the rapist on a bus to another state.
Yes.
He finds them, gives them money, and then sends them off to, I guess, rape again. I mean, what the fuck? If you're going to give me a police detective who's a bullshit, at least have him do his goddamn job at the bad guy in jail.
Right.
Jesus Christ. I could not believe how Bad Lieutenant ended with him getting the guy's money and then putting him on a bus. What the fuck?
After his literal come to Jesus moment.
Yes, yeah, that's right. Jesus makes an appearance in that picture. That's right. Which is weirder, Jesus or the iguanas? I don't know. Which one would you pick?
At least the Jesus moment had a purpose. What did the iguanas have to do with anything relating to the movie besides illustrating how like completely off his ass Terrence was on drugs?
Yes, I guess that was the only point. I don't know. But then again, what was with the alligator? I mean, there's a lot of reptiles running around that don't seem to have much to do with the plot, but they're there.
Right.
All right. So we got 3 votes for it works, but we're fucking befuddled by it.
Absolutely.
All right, Calvin.
Yes, sir.
Plug something. Where can people find your stuff?
So you can find me every Tuesday night on Lush Vibes Radio, 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. Eastern Time at radiofreebrooklyn.org. 2 hours of good, lush, often chill, never boring, just good-ass music. And
awesome.
Oh, yeah, you can also find me on Twitch because that's where I DJ from time to time.
Uh-huh. Sure do.
You can find me at twitch.tv, and I'm going to have to spell this out for you because my username is spelled weird. twitch.tv/MEJISTICLV. MejisticLV.
Yep. MejisticLV. Yep.
Close enough.
Okay, George, what's up next?
Our next episode is a Patron's Choice episode, and we don't know what the movies are going to be because our patrons vote on them, and that vote hasn't been finalized yet as of this recording. If you want to vote but are not a patron, you can fix that by becoming one at patreon.com/DTSWpod. Calvin, thank you so much for joining us. Are you able to stick around for the post show?
Oh, yeah, I can stick around.
Awesome.
Oh, excellent. Thank you so much. Thank you for doing this. And
thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you're a lot of fun. Good stuff. So I guess that's it for this episode. I'm Joe Dixon. Thanks for listening.
And I'm George Romacka. Thanks for listening indeed, because if a podcast drops and there's no one around to hear it, it's just another collection of ones and zeros that doesn't matter.
Kill all of you. To the break of dawn. To the break of dawn, baby.
You've been listening to Does This Still Work? Produced by Joe Dixon and George Romacka. The hosts can be reached via social media, email, or the contact page at dtswpod.com. Be good to yourself and others, because that still works.
Reach her, I barely even know her.
But
All right. Yeah, that was terrible.
and I co-sign it.
Can you think of a setback that turned out to be a blessing in disguise?
So can you think of something that you thought was a blessing, but turned out to be a setback?
Do you see yourself as a role model?
What's the hottest or spiciest thing you've enjoyed eating?
You have to wear one of these outfits every day. What would you pick? A Star Trek uniform, a cowboy outfit, or a goth?
If you get married, where would you want your honeymoon?
Can you spell candy or spell candy with 2 letters?